Hello and welcome back to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every Friday night. Why we do this on a Friday night, my guest here being from the UK might understand the relevance to that. Friday night is horror night because on a Friday we used to get Channel 4 used to give us all the classics after the watershed. Do you remember that, Peter?
I do. Yeah, actually, I mean, I'm old enough, Greg, that before Channel 4, I guess in the late 60s, early 70s, the regional, the franchise, the ITV franchise where I grew up was Granada. And Granada started showing horror movies after 10:30 on a Friday night.
Nice,
The
nice,
Beeb did as well. It's what?
nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it was great. So that's where I saw all my first Hammer movies, my first Universal movies. Yeah. So yeah, I've definitely got that association with Friday night, 10:30 horror movie. Yeah.
Well, for me growing up and for the King and for the Dino, it moved to 10 o'clock as soon as the watershed broke.
Oh yeah,
So
right.
it's a little tribute to that. That's why we put this out at 10 o'clock on a Friday night.
Great.
Um, but as you can imagine, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't the King. This isn't the Dynamo with me. This is author and screenwriter of franchises that go as The Wishmaster and Hellraiser. Now, they're two pretty big names. But this is Mr. Peter Atkins. How are you, sir?
All the better for seeing you, Greg. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for taking the time out of your day too. Come on.
Oh no, no, it's a
Mm.
pleasure. And
Seeing as it's mid-afternoon for you.
exactly, yeah, yeah. I'm missing me lunch for this, Greg. So I hope you
we'll,
appreciate it.
we'll make it a good one.
All right.
Yeah. How are you anyway?
I'm doing good, mate. How's yourself?
Not bad, not bad. Keeping busy. Loads of horror to watch, the usual.
Oh yeah, got to keep up with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've watched far, far more than I should have so far this year already.
Yeah.
I've
I'm
I've
bad.
watched.
I don't watch. I don't keep up with it as much as I should. Because I've been bit. I mean, I'm sure you have too. But I mean, I've been bitten by such crap. Because it used to be, the streaming stuff. Um, it used to be that if you had to go to a movie to see something, you'd sit through it even if it was crap. Go to a theater, I mean, you'd sit through it even if it was crap. And if you went to video store, um, you'd come home with the video, so you'd watch it even if it was crap. But now streaming, we're spoiled. I'll get
Oh,
something
absolutely
10 minutes, and like 10 minutes in, it's like this is crap, and just that's it. I'm not bothering sticking with it, So I've been put off taking a chance because there's a lot of crap out there on Netflix and some of the other ones.
No, like as bad as some movies can be, I do. Once I put them on, I'll tend to stick through it.
Good for you.
Um, I mean, people have put their hard work into it, whether it's good or not. I've
Now
committed
you're
it.
making me now you're making me feel bad, Greg. But you know
Well,
what it is, mate? You're a younger man. You can afford to waste your time on a piece of crap. I'm thinking, hey, I can't afford this app. Turning it off. No,
I've
but
I've I've been more selective in what I've watched as of late, though. To be fair,
yeah,
back when I was about 20 or 21, when I started working in the video shop, I actually used to come home with 5 DVDs, and we used
yeah,
to find
good.
the worst cases we could find and see if we could get a couple of gems out of it. Now,
Yeah,
to be fair, we found a couple of really good ones. We found, obviously, we are talking off screen. Dog Soldiers was one that I found
yeah,
that I
right.
rented expecting to be crap. Absolutely well wrong with that one.
Yeah. Now,
Uh,
did you actually expect it to be crap because you'd heard it was, or had you just not heard of it?
I hadn't heard a thing about it. Didn't
Right.
even know it existed. I went literally off the cover,
Yeah.
and in the video shop that we had, it was just the cover of the six shadow figures and the trees,
Okay.
and then like a mouth, and I was like, oh, this looks
This will
awful.
be terrible. Yeah.
Now,
Right.
I said that to Neil, and he was like, yeah, that's the cover we went with. Now there was some other cooler covers that have come out over the years,
Yeah.
and I couldn't have been any more wrong when I rented it first. The movie's fantastic. I know
Right.
you haven't seen it.
It,
Um,
it is a sad gap in my horror.
yeah, it is. Yeah, that's a glaring gap.
But
But
I think we have a little freezer.
another one that we got was 2003's Wrong Turn.
What is it
Don't know what
called?
you've seen. Wrong Turn. Uh,
Oh, Wrong Turn. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, obviously started Elijah Duskey along the way, spawning 7 other movies.
Yeah, right.
But like, there's been a few we got. I remember one glaring one that I missed growing up was House. The Sean Cunningham one.
Oh, the original one. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So that was another one that I picked up along the way.
Yeah,
So we did get some good ones, but I've seen some crap.
yeah. Well, it's we pay for the genre we love, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah,
That's
well, that's it. But as I says in the intro there, like, you are an author, as you can see behind you there, Morning Star.
Is it the right way
Uh,
round on your screen? Because on
yeah.
my little monitor it's flipped, but I guess that's
Oh yeah, no, no, it's the right way around.
legible at your end. All right.
So you're an author, you're a screenwriter. So tell us how you got into that.
Um, well, I mean, like I always wanted to do that. I suppose, like a lot of people, I, act- I actually started in theatre and music rather than movies and literature. Um, I grew up in Liverpool, and
Shame that.
yeah, but my grandparents were from Belfast, so give me a buy on that.
Shame that too.
Um, you're a hard man to please, Greg. You got your
I,
niche
ha- I
niche.
have you. I have you missing your lunch here, and I'm still giving abuse.
But the thing about Liverpool was it's essentially a blue collar town, working class town, and for most people, the only way out of the factory floor as a future was sports or music. And music, you could say sports or the arts, but a working class kid didn't really think about the arts. The thing you could see your neighbors doing or your older generation doing was forming a band. Um, and I had no interest in sport, and I certainly wasn't any good at it. So I learned the guitar like people do, and so I was in bands as early as, I don't know, 15, 16. And then as a consequence of being in one of those bands, I met another guy from Liverpool, Clive Barker, because the guy who was the drummer in my band, his sister, and we went to, we're still, I'm still in what they call high school here. What do you say over there still? Do you still say senior school or secondary school? What do you
Secondary
say?
school, yeah. I'm trying to
Secondary
work out
school.
what high school is. Yeah, secondary school, yeah.
Yeah, so I was still in secondary school, and Graham, who was the drummer, said, "Oh, you should meet our Sue's mate Clive. He's like you. He reads books." And
He's like you. He reads books.
yeah, that's it. Graham thought that was sufficiently weird that we would bond him. And the weird thing is, he was right though. Clive and I did bond straight away, and I met him and Doug Bradley, the guy who went on to be Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies. I met Clive, and then half an hour later, I met Doug. They were a little bit older than me. I was 17 probably, and Clive was probably 20, and Doug was 19. And they were just getting started with the thought of having a theatre company. So it's a very long-winded answer to your question. But
No,
basically, I started in rock and roll and fringe theatre, and then sort of as a consequence of that, the rest of it opened up, I suppose.
so
But
so the rock and roll lifestyle,
yeah, well, yeah, it's not like we got a record deal and we're doing big tours, but yeah, I was playing pubs and clubs and
making money.
yeah, scratching a living, I'd say. But you also, I grew up in the great socialist decade of the 70s, so I was subsidizing all this artistic endeavor by some. So, but yeah,
Well, the what? Sorry.
did it freeze at your end?
I got there.
Oh,
You
I
got
thought you
you.
said it
You were
froze.
you were
But
subsidizing.
yes, subsidising the artistic activity with Her Majesty's government's dole. So,
I mean, you,
but
you
yeah,
have to do what you
scratching
have to
living.
do.
So we got played on local radio, so that was good. It was actually that sort of
That's something.
classic moment where we were driving back from a gig over the river in New Brighton, and as we experience actually of, oh, hang on, gotta
Yeah,
do
go
the
ahead.
got it button. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we had that classic experience actually, like driving back from a gig. We did a show over the river in New Brighton, and we're driving back at midnight. Um, the van radio was on, and this song starts up, and this guitar riff sounded familiar, and we were going, "Wait a minute, what's this?" And then the bass player shouted, "It's us!" And we were being played on a local radio show, actually by a woman who went on. It was a local DJ called Janice Long, who was very supportive of young local
Locals.
bands, you know. And she went on later to be like a Top of the Pops host and at a big Radio
Nice.
One show. But she was a local DJ back then, so it was just local radio. But it was great. Yeah,
Nice. Nice. So obviously
yeah,
then you've met Clive and Doug along the way then.
yeah, yeah.
So
And
music is to thank for all that came afterwards.
everything that, yeah, kind of. Well, you know, I think it's actually whatever it is, whether your point of entry is music or drawing or literature or theatre, whatever it is, once you sort of make that decision, once you run away with the circus, you're going to meet other circus performers, even if it's a different, you know, even if you're starting as a tightrope walker and then you meet the acrobats and the clowns, you know, it's
Mm.
you just sort of,
The asylum is full.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you realize you're happy being in the asylum. And it's like, oh, lunatics. Great. Fellow lunatics.
More
So,
fun people to play with.
yeah, right. Exactly. And although, you know, for the last 20, 25 years, I've been primarily prose fiction, you know, an author rather than a screenwriter. I really, having been in bands and been in theatre and having worked on movie sets, I really do like that sort of group activity thing, that collaborative team effort. It's great to be involved.
For someone who doesn't like sport to love teamwork.
I didn't say it was teamwork. Half the time you're shouting at each other and disagreeing,
But
but
that's part of being a team.
yeah, no, it is right, right. But yeah, no, it's great. It's great to work with other people, with like-minded people, and then you know, doing the writing gives you the other satisfaction, which is the single signature and nobody can mess with it sort of feeling. But making movies, making theatre, being in bands, yeah. So all good stuff. But whatever gets you out there and keeps you out of trouble, you know, that's
Let's see. Got to make money along the way too, so that helps.
hopefully, yeah, yeah.
So obviously you said you've met Clive and Doug along the way.
Right.
So obviously you go on to become friends with them along obviously a winding road of
Yeah.
arts.
Right. Yeah. Well, we ran a theatre company together for about 7 years. And then, well, I left to go back to Liverpool and be in another band. But the theatre company went on. We'd never been successful. And then they had a little bit of success up in the Edinburgh Fringe the year after I'd left. So I felt, oh, it must have been me then. It was me
So
that
it's
was
your
holding
fault.
back. Yeah, right. But around the same time, at the tail end of that, Clive had started writing the stories that were going to end up as the Books of Blood, which was his first books. And as a consequence of that, obviously I'm telescoping time a lot here.
Oh
But
yeah.
as a consequence of that, he got the opportunity to do Hellraiser with a young producer who'd found him, a guy called Chris Figg, who, funnily enough, was the producer later of the movie you were talking about, Neil Marshall's
Dog
Dog
Soldiers.
Soldier. Yeah. So Chris was the guy who really sort of, in a way, let all of us in, because Chris produced I had nothing to do with the first Hellraiser, but obviously Doug played Pinhead in it. It's Clive's movie. And then I came on board with Hellraiser 2, wrote that 3 and 4. So Chris Figg sort of opened that door in a way for all of us to get in.
Some man.
I'm prejudiced in favor of Dog Soldiers way before even seeing it, you know, because it's like it's Chris's movie, so you know we owe him.
You hear that, Carl? That's exactly what it. Um, but obviously, the success that Hellraiser had throughout the 80s, 90s, and even the characters still carry on. Obviously, we had a
Sure.
reboot this year,
Yeah.
or was it this year? Or was it early last year? Late last
Last
year?
year, I guess, technically, yeah.
Yeah, late last year. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Um, so you said you weren't involved in number one. Obviously,
Right.
um, you went on to write number two,
Hmm.
which I think a lot of people have a lot of love for. It's a bit faster paced along the way than one.
Well, we had more
Um,
money. We had more money, and we were at Pinewood, which was Pinewood's like the big. I know you know, but for any of your listeners who mightn't, Pinewood is the big, classic old studio outside London, where they shot the Bond movies and the Carry On movies, yeah, and Star Wars and Batman and all that stuff. So
every movie that's ever made there in the
kinda,
80s and
yeah,
90s.
yeah. It was weird. My first day on set there. I can't remember if they'd actually finished shooting, but they'd just done Batman, the very first Batman, not the very first, Tim Burton's Batman.
The
Um,
87 one, was it? 80.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And Gotham City was still up. So like I get off the taxi at Pinewood and go in, and the first thing I'm doing is walking down the main streets of Gotham City. And I thought, oh, I'm in the movie business now. This is great.
I like this. This works.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
um, yeah, that'd be mad. Like I've never actually been on a film set. Well, I've been to Ardmore Studios in Bray, where
Oh
they make
yeah,
a lot of
sure.
movies.
Yeah,
That's where I'm from.
right.
So obviously they made the likes of Rain of Fire and stuff there.
Yeah, right.
Um, but like I've seen like the set of the Tudors. We went in to get something when we were building something. We went in to collect something,
Yeah.
and like the set of the Tudors was up and stuff. But um, I would say nothing to the extent of being able to walk down the middle of Gotham City.
Yeah, I think they were already dismantling it to be honest, because I think they'd wrapped, but it was still it was close enough
You can
to
always say you walk down Gotham City
yeah, exactly,
in what
exactly.
my opinion is the best Batman too.
The very famous one, yeah,
Yeah. Well, technically Keaton is my favorite Batman.
right, right.
Um,
I haven't
if
seen he's obviously no spoilers for anybody out there, but he's back in the Flash, right? Have you seen that yet?
I haven't heard good things about it though.
No, nor me, unfortunately. But I'm I'll be interested just to see Keaton back as Batman. So I will see it.
Now I'm sure somebody on YouTube will compile a clip of all his parts in that and just put it on. That's
Well,
all I need
maybe
to see.
there you go then. All right,
Uh,
yeah,
um, but like then you go in to do Hellraiser 2.
yeah.
How do you go from Gotham City to Hellraiser 2?
Well, because when I got to the end of Gotham City, I turned left and went into stage 7, and there we were. They'd already built the stuff. It was funny because 4 months, 6 months, whatever it was, 4 months earlier, I'd been typing on a manual typewriter, by the way, pre-computer. I'd been
Nice.
typing these various scenes, for Hellraiser 2. And then I walk in, it's like, and Mike Buchanan, the production designer, is like, here's the set. And it's like, oh, yeah, fine.
That
So
works.
that works, yeah. So
It,
so the and I think I was picking up on you said a lot of people, a lot of love for Hellraiser 2, and you said tactfully it was faster paced than the first one. And we did have more money, and it was a bigger crew, and it was filmed at Pinewood. Um, but I would also say, just for the historical record, that time's been very kind to it, or to me and to Tony Randall, who directed it, because at the time, I mean, it did fine, financially and commercially, it was a hit, but the reviews, well, there were two types of reviews. There was the mainstream press, so fuck them, and they didn't like it because it was gory and disgusting and
of course they
horrifying.
didn't.
So some prick in the Daily Mail, literally the first time. How does your mum feel about this? The first time her son's name is in the papers is because some knob in the Daily Mail is literally saying Clive Barker, Peter Atkins, and Tony Randall should be jailed for inflicting this sort of horror on. It's like, oh, thanks a lot, mate. But it's the
But
Daily
but
Mail. What
but
can you
yeah,
do?
Cronenberg could do what he done in the States.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? What's the difference? Like there's been body horror throughout the years in
Oh
everything.
no,
Do you know what I mean?
actually, no, the thing is, I'm joking about. It was like that was thrilling because it was like, oh, if we're getting under these people's skins like
It's
this,
working.
it's working, yeah. So it was great, but the downside of it was that the genre press, who are more important to the likes of us, they were very mixed about Hellraiser 2, and some of them thought, I think, because they didn't know that we were all a happy little team and that Tony Randall had been an executive on the first movie, and that I'd been involved with Clive and Doug for 10 years in theatre. So I think there was a certain degree of critical suspicion. It's like, oh, they took Clive Barker's baby away from him, and these other people have made this movie. So it didn't get. There was some good reviews, obviously, but it wasn't uniformly welcomed and loved. But you're right now, um, and I shouldn't grin about this. I should keep a straight face. But right, when they do these polls among Hellraiser fans, Hellraiser 2 often edges out Hellraiser as their favorite. So
It's as it says,
um,
there- it's different. Like there's certain types of horror fans that are gonna love the original one.
sure,
The
sure,
slower pace, the slow burn, and you're starting to see it come back into horror now with sort of the A24 stuff,
yeah, right,
um, bringing that slow burn back in, and it's
right.
great when it works. As it
Yeah.
says, like two was definitely faster paced, bit more. It wasn't. I'd say it wasn't even a bit thing. There was a less dark, maybe, to an extent.
Well, I've got a sunnier disposition than Clive, so that's
Mm,
some of that
Well,
came in. I don't
I'll let you know if I ever get Clive on the show. I'll come back to you about that one.
know. All right. Well, let's see how you behave. I'll
Uh,
put in a good word if this goes well.
Top man, top man.
No worries.
Um, but like you go on to do three and four and Hellraiser as well. Um, Probably not as high profile as one and two. Um, but the horror fans still turned out for them.
They did, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. In fact, I think you're definitely right that today, I think obviously the percentage of people who even give a shit about these 30-year-old movies is relatively small anyway. But in that little pool, they're very fiercely loyal about things. And you're definitely right that one and two are the ones they routinely. Very few people in that small pool dislike those two. Then you get a whole sort of split in the fans of people who love three and think it went downhill with four, or people who hated three and think four was more interesting than three. So you get a little bit of
there's
divided fandom on there. But at the time, they were just as high profile in terms of the wide theatrical release, at least, as the first two.
it took a very similar the franchise took a very similar path to Halloween, didn't it? When you look at it overall,
Probably,
um,
yeah.
obviously Halloween one and Hellraiser one, what everyone's going to say are probably the best of them.
Right.
I know you're saying there some of the polls give two
Some of the
the.
polls give the edge to two, but yeah, I take
Now,
your point. Yeah.
me personally, I'd probably give the edge to two over
God
one.
bless you. That's why I'm here, mate.
Um, but like obviously one is the original and it
Sure.
made people fall in love, right? Two
Yes.
for Halloween and Hellraiser were good. They were well. Halloween two was okay. I thought it was a bit strange. Has probably one of the best deaths in it where he puts you one into the hot tub. Why the
Well,
hospital has a hot tub, I don't know.
right.
But that's one thing or another.
Those doctors have got to relax somewhere, Greg. Come on.
We Halloween and Hellraiser both took that sort of left turn with three, where people loved or hated it. Now, me
Yeah,
personally,
right.
I loved it. Like Season of the Witch,
Halloween 3, you mean?
yeah. But
Yeah.
even Hellraiser, as it says, I'm more of a Hellraiser two. Like I wouldn't be a huge fan of the franchise. I enjoy like they're on. I'll watch them. I enjoy the
Sure.
characters, and I enjoyed the character development that we've seen with Doug bringing out the Cenobites and the different Cenobites that came with it.
Yeah.
Um, so watching the development of them throughout the franchise was very good. Um, and like it's strange to see the franchise just kind of stopped. I know it went as far as six, I think, wasn't it?
I
Six went
think
straight
I
to
think no, I think eight. I think.
eight. Oh,
Yeah.
well, yeah, sorry, yeah, Revelations or something was the last one, I
Yeah.
think.
Right. Right.
And then obviously we get a remake or a reboot, whatever they want to call it, last year.
Right. They were calling it a remake for a long time during pre-production and advanced publicity. They kept calling it a remake, but it isn't. It's another story set within the Hellraiser universe. So I think reboot is a
Mm.
more accurate.
Yeah,
Um,
I know they did change it towards the end. I just couldn't remember which way they done it.
yeah.
Um, like
Oh yeah,
I
but
what?
it's not a remake. It's not the same story as the first one at all.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
bunch of new
It's
people find a new box.
mm, the puzzle box. That puzzle box looked terrifying, to be fair.
Oh
With
yeah,
the
what?
with the little blades and the spikes coming out of it and shit.
Oh, the new one. Yeah. Oh no, the
Yeah,
designs of the box were great. Yeah, I
yeah.
really like that.
Um, but
And I
yeah, I
thought
was like,
Jamie
"Ugh."
was great as the new Pinhead. She was fantastic.
the
Really good.
the absolute hatred that came off the back of that cast and was ridiculous. And
Oh
like,
yeah, long before they'd
I don't,
seen it. Yeah.
I don't understand it. Like, Jesus Christ, I understand at the time, probably what 6 or 7 years ago. I remember they done the likes of Ghostbusters with all the women and Ocean's 11 and stuff. They were
Right.
forcing that down their throat, and people were like, "Oh, they're doing that." They're not doing that. The book doesn't describe Pinhead as anything.
No.
What's to say it couldn't be me playing it, or it couldn't be
No,
the
absolutely.
woman that
And
lives
in
down the
fact,
road?
the only overtly gender slanted description in the whole novella, The Hellbound Heart, he Clive does talk about, and obviously the word pinhead isn't used, but the
The Hell
lead
Priest.
Cenobite. Well, no, Clive invented that decades later. I know we're all meant to say that now instead of pinhead, but he only said that in the Scarlet Gospels. Um, but no, he just called the lead Cenobite, and there is this one sentence about it, the high, breathy voice of a girl, I'm not quoting that verbatim. Sorry, hardcore fans. I know I
Mm,
should know it all off by heart, but I don't. But he does refer to that, so it's perfectly legit to say no, that can come directly from the source material. But we're getting lost in the weeds, because like you say, who cares?
mm.
It's like
I
Pinhead. The monster can be anything, can be
I
anyone,
thought
any
I
type
thought
of.
I thought I thought they were very good as Pinhead. The voice was brilliant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, yeah, she was a really eerie, unsettling presence. I liked it. I thought she did a great job.
Now I'll give you a funny one. So I knew there was a reboot coming. Didn't look anything up about it. Didn't see anything until the ad dropped,
Oh yeah.
and didn't know who was playing Pinhead at the time. Didn't know
Right.
who was doing what. And then the ad dropped, and I was like, "Is that a girl?"
Right.
And then obviously I went on to look it up, and I was like, "Well,
Yeah,
that's
so
something new." And then
yeah,
obviously the
exactly.
hatred started, and I was like, "Yeah, fucked."
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
people get very bent out of shape about the weirdest stuff. That's
But if
yeah.
you, I think it was more so along that line. Like obviously we seen Doug play Pinhead throughout the
Oh well,
franchise.
that's a different thing. Yeah, feeling that sort of fanboy loyalty to the original, but and I mean, let me be clear before I say what I'm going to say. Doug was very supportive of Jamie and said very nice things, and she was great about him. So it was a big love fest all around between the OG and the new kid on the block. But but the fact is, Doug is 69 years old now. So it's like I wasn't around in the 1930s, but I'm sure I would have been a Karloff loyalist. And the first time somebody else played Frankenstein's monster, I probably would have thought, oh, it can only be Boris. It can only be Boris. But
The man can only play all them Universal monsters, huh?
yeah, that's right. That's right. But certainly, by the time Boris got to be 69, I wouldn't have wanted the poor bastard to be plastered under that makeup again.
There
So,
we have it. You still have fans calling for Robert Englund to play Freddy Krueger again.
right, right,
So I mean,
right.
the man's 76 years of age,
Yeah.
and I'm sure he could do it. There's no
I'm
doubt in
sure
my
that's
mind he
yeah,
could do it.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure Robert could do Freddy and Doug could do Pinhead. They're both vigorous, youngish 76-year-olds and 69-year-olds. But you can't
There comes a time.
there comes a time where you can do it stuff. I mean, Robert's working, obviously. Robert
Yeah,
was in Stranger Things, and Doug's
he
just
was
been in.
he was phenomenal in Stranger Things too.
Yeah, that was great. Great.
So again,
And
there's
Doug
another
just
one where
played Joe Chill. Doug played the guy that killed Batman's parents in one of the DC spin-off shows. I forget which one. Not
Gotham
Guardian. No, Gotham
Titans was it?
finished. Is it Titans? I don't know.
Titans, yeah.
It's
Titans just came
about
out on Netflix.
did it? Okay, well it might be that one.
Um,
One of the younger Bat Universe shows. Doug gets to play Joe Chill, and
nice.
so yeah, it's great. And he looked. I haven't seen it yet, but I saw the clip of his face, and it's like, yeah, you look like a killer who's been in jail for 20 years. Looks good.
Like
Um,
I remember watching Stranger Things myself and my other half. I didn't even watch any of the trailers to it,
yeah.
because I didn't want that to be spoiled. Now I kind of heard that David Harbour was coming back, and I was like, all right, okay, so that's that. Didn't know Robert was in it,
Oh yeah.
and obviously we get the Hannibal Lecter kind of scene where she goes down into the prison. And
Right.
I was sitting with my missus, and obviously he starts speaking, and you don't see his face, and I
I
was like, I
know
know
that.
that voice.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? And I was like, I know who that is. And she's like, do you know who that is? And I was like, yeah, that's Robert Englund. He's like, who?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's Freddy Krueger. That's who that is. She's like, no, it couldn't be. And I was like, yes. But what I found about Stranger Things season 4, it was very Nightmare on Elm Street
Sure.
heavy,
Oh
in
yeah.
looks and in design.
Definitely. I mean, there's all kinds of echoes of all kinds of 80s things in there, obviously, consciously and maybe unconsciously too. But yeah, Nightmare dominates, I think, in terms of the
Yeah.
influences.
Um, but then obviously I was saying to you off screen, I seen yourself in the Screenbox exclusive Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares
Yeah.
talking about Robert. Like that'll bring us on to your next big franchise, which is one that I think is extremely underrated.
Oh,
And
thanks,
haven't
mate.
haven't haven't got to work. Obviously, you're obviously friends with Clive Barker as well, but haven't gone from Clive, who created one of the big, what people would refer to as the big five, really,
Yeah.
to working with Wes Craven, who created arguably two of the big five.
Right. Are you
So
counting
like how it,
Scream? Are you saying
yeah,
Scream is the other one? Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Scream, yeah.
Yeah.
Tombstone's head would be kill me if I didn't. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, so like how did it go to working on Wishmaster, which as I says, I didn't. It's a franchise that I don't think gets enough love and support.
Oh, thanks very much, mate. Cheers. Well, it was, it's that weird thing, like when once the ball is rolling and it keeps spinning, it's often a case of I think I'm trying to track back. Yeah, it was a guy I'd known. He had been working for New World, which is the company that made the first three, two and a half really, Hellraiser movies. His name was Eric Salzgeber, and but he'd moved on and was now working for a smaller company, working directly for a French Canadian producer called Pierre David, who produced a couple of the early Cronenberg movies.
Hmm.
And Eric was at Pierre David's company, and he phoned me. I said, were we doing it? We done Hellraiser 4? We must have wrapped Hellraiser 4, I guess. Um, anyway, he called me out of the blue and said, do you want to write an Evil Genie movie for Pierre? And I said, Evil Genie? It's the stupidest idea I've ever heard of. Fuck off. I'm not coming in to pitch an Evil Genie idea. And Eric said, fuck you. The job's yours if you want it. You don't have to pitch shit. Do you want to write a movie, get paid or not? And suddenly I thought, you know, an Evil Genie movie. That's a fantastic idea.
Not to do with the dollar signs attached to it.
Right, well, it was, yeah, because usually you have to go in and you pitch and they think about it and they listen to somebody else and you're on tenterhooks. And this is like, no, you just wrote three hits in a row, so
Let's
Pierre will
go.
pay you to write this, you know. And but to be honest, I did think, oh, Christ, Evil Genie movie. What the fuck can I do with that? But I went in and met with Eric. Wes wasn't attached at this point. I went in and I met with Eric and Pierre David and the guy who actually went on to line produce the movie, the hands-on producer, a guy called Clark Peterson. And I liked all of them, and we got on well in the room. And you know, it's the same old story. You know, I said, well, yeah, fine. You know, let me go and scribble a few thoughts on paper and see what you think. And I gave them a 4-page. This could happen. This could happen. This could happen. And they said, yeah, fine. Write a draft. So I did that, and then Wes came on as executive producer somewhere in the middle. I'd written a couple of drafts, whichever one. I know I'd written more than one draft because I remember thinking in retrospect when they called up and said, "Oh, Wes Craven's going to executive produce for us." I remember thinking, "Oh, thank fuck he didn't read the first draft," because I know, because I know I fixed. I know I made it better in the second one. So it was either the second or the third draft he read, and so he agreed to they used it to really sort of grandfather the project. I mean, I would love to say, oh yeah, we had Wes on set every day. He produced the movie, but he was the executive producer, which meant that I got to meet him, so that was a plus. And he was very complimentary about the script, which is lovely. And he was fantastic with Bob Kurtzman, who came on to direct it,
Yeah.
because Bob had done Bob Kurtzman. It was the K in KNB, who at that stage were like the dominant physical effects company, and it was Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger, the KNB. So Bob was going to direct it, and Bob had worked a lot with for Wes as a special effects guy. So Wes was very supportive, and he wasn't on the interfering in any way. He left Bob alone to shoot the movie. But then Bob always said to me he was particularly helpful in post production. He would come in and just, that's sort of the professional eye, the old hand. Like Bob would be cutting the scene with the editors, and Wes would do you could cut 5 frames earlier, and just little specific things like that really helped Bob tighten up the edit. So it was great.
Well, I mean, what better person to get information from, really, apart from maybe John Carpenter?
Yeah, right, exactly.
You're talking about arguably two of obviously Carpenter and Craven, probably the two best horror directors ever.
Probably, yeah. I mean, why don't I be tactful? Because I've got a lot of friends. So why don't I say 2 of the best horror directors?
Yeah. Well, this is totally my opinion.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'd say Craven is number 1.
Yeah.
I'd say Carpenter is number 1.
Right.
But Craven is the better character creator.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Obviously, he created Ghostface. I know he didn't.
No, Kevin Williamson. Yeah. As a writer,
his vision.
To make that clear. Let's be clear. Kevin wrote it, and then Wes came on board.
Yeah. But it was his vision that made it happen.
Oh yeah. Oh God, and his direction was superb. I mean, that was.
And then obviously you have Freddie as well.
Yeah.
Who in my opinion is
written and directed. Yeah. Right.
Who in my opinion is the slasher that saved slashers, really, for me. I always maintain the slashers were going to a bad
Yeah,
place. Obviously, they were slow moving, methodical, and then you get this superstar.
right.
Mm.
Wes was great. Robert was great. Everything about it. But also, I think it's the slasher that saved slashers because it brought back the supernatural. Now,
Mm.
obviously, we know Jason was dead, so Friday the 13th, even more than Halloween, is technically supernatural horror, but it's really stalk and slash. The
Yeah,
thing about Nightmare, of course, is it's the dream world. It's that whole other imaginative, surreal, weirdo stuff, and that was really, I mean, in my opinion, that was really what gave it that edge in 1984. It was
and
like, oh,
the
that's
humor that Robert brought to the forefront.
yeah, he was just great. Yeah, he was
But
great.
there again, there's me divulging off Wishmaster.
Oh no, that's all
Um,
right. You're allowed to diverge to Nightmare on Elm Street. It is a watermark in horror cinema for sure. Yeah,
but
um,
obviously
it was great. It was great to have both Wes as executive producer and to have Robert come on to be in the movie was fantastic.
and he
And he's
plays an absolute dick in it too.
oh yeah, and plays it so well. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
he's a
yeah.
genius.
I mean, no, he was great, and I'm sure. I mean, you've seen a finished cut of the documentary, which I haven't yet, but I'm sure you could tell from that what a uh, what a storyteller Robert is. And it was
What a
like,
presence.
yeah. And so it was just great just hanging out backstage with him at Wishmaster because, he just have stories to tell and things to say.
But
And it was great.
like, so there you've wrote the script or wrote the screenplay for this, right? You've just found out Craven is coming on to be an executive producer, right? Had you got a casting done at that stage already?
Um, they'd probably started doing it. I mean, we, I guess Bob Kurtzman was hired as director around the same time as Wes came on. I think. I mean, it's 30 years ago. Well,
Yeah.
25
Well,
years ago.
we won't hold anything to.
Yeah, exactly. We're not in a court of law here, right? But roughly speaking, so by the time, let's assume Bob and Wes came on around the same time. But the big secret to the cat, we probably started talking about who we might like. But the big, like the trump card we had, was Bob's Rolodex. Um, and for you young people watching out there, a Rolodex was something you had before the iPhone was invented, in which you kept all the cards with all your mates' phone numbers on.
And
And
spins around in a circle.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, you're very retro, Greg. Very good. Yeah, but again, because as I say, Bob had been the K and K, well, still was the K and KMB. So he knew all these people. And I'd already, in the script, I'd put a lot of people get the wrong there. If you say in jokes or winks, they think you're either laughing at the genre or trying to undercut it, which is not the thing at all. But I'd buried all kinds of references in. All the names of characters are horror writers. The names of the buildings are, so there's all kinds of like little, well, they call them Easter eggs now. We didn't use that term back then.
Nuanced.
Yeah, nuances and Easter eggs. And then once we got hold of Bob's Rolodex, it was like, well, you've got everybody in here. So that was the other great thing about Wishmaster. It was like 80s horror class reunion because we got Robert, obviously we got Kane, who'd been Jason, we got Tony Todd, who I knew because of Candyman. I'm going to forget people.
You've
We
got
got
Ted
Ted
Raimi.
Raimi, we got Buck Flowers, and all kinds of other people, all of whom are just as important as the ones I named. But yeah, it was great. So we really did have that sort of horror hall of fame feel about the cast list.
It was one
And
of those. It was one of the first ones that I can really remember that had the big. They were kind of the big three at the time.
right,
Now I know like I'll say for Kane, Kane went on to become a very, very good actor out of Mask. Obviously being a stuntman at the start.
Right.
Um, so seeing him in this obviously was a bit different. People mightn't have recognised who he was
Yeah.
to a full extent.
No, I think
Obviously,
you're right. Yeah.
obviously Robert coming off Nightmare and a couple others. I think he'd done the Disney movies at that stage. Was it the Disney or the Life movies, whatever, where he came off the back of doing the new Nightmare and stuff. He'd done a couple other ones that weren't horror.
Oh, was that? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, yeah. Because this is 97, so yeah,
Yeah.
there'd been that window
Um,
there with those things. Yeah,
and then obviously you see him without makeup. Obviously he played Willie in V
yeah,
and
yeah,
other movies along the way. Obviously Eaten Alive and stuff, but his face was not really known without the burn scars and stuff.
yeah. Right.
And then Tony Todd, you know, by the voice, it's just.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh, I maintain he was the voice of horror. Um,
Tony. Oh, that's great. That's great.
from obviously Candyman on, like he had Final Destination, he just has
Sure.
that voice, doesn't he?
The It was great. I won't tell a little story about Tony. Um, I actually, what was first of all, I want to brag. I should have said this earlier. We got all of them thanks to Bob's Rolodex, except Tony. I got Tony. So, so months later, we're having the cast and crew screening. You know, like I said, not a premiere. You don't really get
Yeah,
premieres when you're a horror B movie. But we had a cast and crew screening, and by then, I couldn't give up the music completely. I had a little band in LA then called Invisible Cinema, and uh, my bass player, Ron Battle, was a fantastic session, mate. Like, why he was slumming with the likes of me, I've no fucking idea. He played with Scotty Moore, Solomon Burke, but
I
I
have
must have
no
loved
idea who
him.
they are.
Oh well, they're fucking legends, mate. Look them up. But Scotty Moore was Elvis Presley's guitar player. So,
Oh,
like on those very first 1954, obviously Ron is not Scotty's age. Don't get me wrong. Um, but Scotty was Elvis's first guitar player, and Solomon Burke was a great R&B soul singer legend, and Ron played bass for both of those guys. Um, what was I saying? Oh, but also Ron happens to be a black guy, and so obviously
he
Tony.
happens to be a black guy.
Yeah, no, well, it's relevant to the story I'm telling because and also Ron was just cool as fuck. Like you never got a rise out of Ron. He was Mr. Cool. So I take Ron and the other guitar player from the band, Steve, who happens to be Italian, but that's got nothing to do with the story. Um, so we go and because of course what I hadn't as a stupid white boy, what I hadn't realized, of course, was the impact Tony being a horror icon had on the black community. So we come up the escalator at the Hollywood place where I'm in the cast and crew, and Ron, Mr. Cool, just suddenly grabs my arm and says, "Is that Candyman?" And he's staring, and I see that, and I said, "Oh, Tony, Tony!" And Tony comes over and gives me a big hug, and I say, "Can I introduce?" So I introduce him, and I've never seen Ron so meek. He was like a little 12-year-old boy because it was like he is the black horror icon. Um, and I must have mumbled because I said, you know, blah blah blah, Ron, blah blah blah, Steve, and then Tony shakes hands with Ron and says, "What was your name, brother?" And Ron, Mr. Cool, goes, "Ron." And I'd never seen him. It was great. So I loved Tony just for that. That it was like it gave me very cool status with my
I,
cool bass player.
I have heard now from people that have met him at conventions and stuff that he's just a top drawer person.
Oh yeah, it was
Uh,
great.
uh,
Great. I haven't
Um,
seen. I saw him at one of those sort of big autograph show things. It's got to be more than 10 years ago now. And I haven't seen him since. But we had a there was a big Hellraiser reunion at one of those autograph shows recently, and I saw people from Hellraiser 3 who I hadn't and Hellraiser 4 who I hadn't seen for a long time. And and Andy Divoff, who of course plays the Jin in Wishmaster. I should have mentioned him earlier, as well as all the greats we had in the cameo parts. Of course, it's Andy's movie. He's our monster.
Stole,
And
stole the show too.
oh yeah, he was great. He really held his own with those guys. He was. In fact, it's funny because this was not conscious, but I've got a mate who I don't know whether he's like statistic minded or his mind just works that way, but he says, the Jinn is actually the most powerful movie monster of all. And I said, why? And he said, because he kills Freddy, Jason, and the Candyman. And I'd never thought of it that way because obviously Robert, Kane, and Tony are not playing Freddy,
The
Jason,
lads, yeah.
Candyman. But in Julius's head, it was like, yeah, the Jinn kills Freddy, Jason, and the Candyman. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll take that.
Ironic, I was at a quiz when I was in college, and that was a question in the quiz.
Seriously?
What actor has killed the three people, and Ted Raimi as well?
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's great.
And I was sitting there going, I know the answer to this. I don't know why I know the answer to this,
Yeah.
but I know it.
Yeah.
And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, I know who it is.
Yeah.
No,
Excellent.
I couldn't spell his surname, but I got it right. I was able to mention the movie too. Like that's a who's who casting for the original.
Yeah, like I say, it was great. Great.
And then there was three other movies obviously that followed.
Yeah, I mean, Andy played him again in 2. Neither me nor Bob were involved in 2, 3, and 4. So I'm glad that they made them. It's great that the franchise continued. Andy only did the second because I think the second one was meant to be theatrical. It ended up only getting released on video. But then 3 and 4 were much lower budget and did just come direct on video. But,
yeah, see, I had the 4 of them as a video collection.
Oh yeah.
Beyond the Gates, and then obviously Prophecy Fulfilled being 3 and 4.
Right.
I love the franchise. It popped back onto the Irish Netflix for a while, and I was like, yes, let's go.
Yeah. I hadn't met. So in 3 and 4, they split it, right? Andy obviously played the Jinn and the sort of human avatar, Nathaniel Demarest. But in 3 and 4, they have Jason Connery playing the human side of the Jinn, and is it John Novak? Somebody Novak plays the Jinn in makeup, I think.
Yeah, the name.
But they split it. They have a human actor and well, obviously,
another human actor.
Yeah, another human actor. But
no.
Jason was obviously saying, "I'm not getting in that fucking suit."
Bollocks to that. Jason Connery, yeah, and then Jason Connery was in 3. And then why won't this load for number 4?
Was he not in 4? I thought they shot him back to back, basically.
4 then was John Novak, yeah.
Yeah.
As the Jinn, and then Jason Thompson as Sam.
Okay. And that's Sean Connery's lad, you know.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I mean, I knew it then, but I hadn't known it until they cast him.
Long way to go to catch his L fella.
Yeah. Give him a chance. But yeah.
That was a talented actor right there.
How tough can that be? Can you? It's hard being the son of a famous person, isn't it? Always, and yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, we were talking off screen there. Obviously, we were talking about Oscar wins. Jamie Lee Curtis managed to do something that her parents couldn't do either, though.
Correct. Yeah.
Was it 5 or 6 nominations between the two of them?
Was it that many? Good for them. But she got it. Great.
She got her one, yeah. Obviously Sean Connery was a phenomenal actor. And only got the one, which was a bit weird.
Was it The Untouchables?
Yeah.
That's what he got. Well, he was great in it. He was great.
He was brilliant, wasn't he? Yeah. Real proper dirty, gritty bastard.
Yeah, right.
So obviously that's kind of the big 2 franchises that you've been involved in. and then like obviously says you're an author, screenwriter. Well, before we finish up, we'll have a quick chat about some of the new movies. Have you seen
Sure.
that recently?
Um, God, put me on the spot now, Greg. I mean, yeah, I watch. Obviously, like you yourself, I watch it all the time. But I'm trying to think. Have I loved anything recently? I don't know. I tend to. I think this was also off screen before we started the show. I've been let down by by a lot of crappy indie horror on Netflix and the streamers. So I'm a little gun shy, but I'm trying to think. Name a couple of recent classics, and I'll either say I haven't seen it or
As I
well,
was gonna say,
actually, I won't.
I'll
I
run
won't
you off.
admit to
I'll
not
run you
liking
off
it.
a couple.
Run me off a couple.
Have you seen Viking Wolf?
No, I haven't even heard of that. What is that?
It's on Netflix. It's a new, I think it's a Swedish or Scandinavian werewolf movie.
All right. And you're a big
Absolutely,
werewolf guy, right?
absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. Viking
It's
Wolf.
I have it ranked at the second best movie I've seen this year.
I'm
I
writing
thought it,
this down.
I thought it would have been hard to beat. But I
Yeah.
watched Air. I don't know whether you've seen that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
I thought it was
I thought you were
fantastic.
saying only horror. Yeah. No, I
No,
was
no.
surprised. Because as I say, not a sports fan, and I'm not necessarily a shoe fan either. So if somebody had described to me, I would have said, "Well, I've got no interest in that." But it was terrific, wasn't it?
Oh, it was brilliant. Have you seen Evil Dead Rises?
Not yet. I'm looking. That was the first trailer to scare me in I don't know, 40 years. Like your mother's with the maggots now, or whatever it is she
Yeah,
says. It's like, yeah, it was
Alicia
great.
Sutherland.
Yeah.
She's
It's
actually
like
going
got
to
the
the For Love
same
of Horror
chick.
this year.
Oh yeah, oh good, good.
Yeah.
Now
Um,
is that northern where what city is that in?
that's
For
the
the
one in
love of
Manchester.
God. Oh, it is Manchester. All right,
Yeah.
yeah. Good.
Yeah. Now I'll give you a couple more before we finish up. These
Sure.
are two. These are two indie movies.
Yeah.
Have you seen? Have you seen Last Shift? It was a
No, and
2014
again,
movie.
I haven't heard of that either. Last shift.
Right. So it was a movie by a director called Anthony DiBiase. Di Blasi, not
Oh yeah.
DiBiase. Sorry, I
Well,
was watching
I
wrestling.
knew I knew Anthony years ago, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. So he
He
done that in 2014, but he
okay.
remade it with a
Really?
bigger budget called Malum.
Oh, I've heard of that. Okay.
Um,
Oh,
with with
but it's a remake. That's interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
with friend of the show Cheney Morrow as John
Yeah.
Malum in it, and he's as close as you're gonna get to Charles Manson. That's not Charles Manson. That's how good he was in it.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
I'll check that out. Yeah, I knew Anthony years ago. I haven't seen him for a long time, but that's
I just done an interview with him there a couple of weeks ago.
yeah. Okay. How was
He's
he?
such a nice man.
Oh, good. Good.
Um, have you seen? So this one's by a friend of mine. Who we're actually gonna me and one of the lads are gonna be in his next feature movie
Ah,
as a
nice.
as a voiceover. His name
Yeah.
is Jake Robinson. He does found footage movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's called The Wendigo as
No, but
part of
the Wendigo is
Cryptid.
also that's the title of a classic horror story by Algernon Blackwood from 100 years ago. I don't suppose it's not an adaptation of that, is it? So
No, 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 no. So it's obviously based on the North American
on the
folklore.
legend, yeah, sure, sure.
Um, and then I don't know whether you've seen or it's only out now. It's called Nefarious. It's more of a psychological kind of thriller.
Rings a
It's
bell. Who's in that?
a who are they? Sean Patrick Flannery and Jordan Villefi. I don't know who really either of them
Oh
are,
yeah,
but
I just saw a trailer for that on YouTube, I think.
it's
Yeah, that
about
looks
one's a psychiatrist going into prisoner on death row.
right. Hmm,
Absolutely phenomenal.
really? All
Yeah.
right.
And then I'll give you one more. It's by
Okay.
another director, her first time directorial debut.
Yeah.
It's called Black Mass by Devaney Pinn.
Okay.
It just premiered there at the Cannes Film Festival.
Oh yeah,
So it must be doing well to get there.
yeah. How'd they treat it? Did they give it a 7 minute standing ovation or only a 3 minute?
11.
Like, yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I didn't ask her, but
No,
she
no.
said
It's
she was
it's,
kind of.
it's just it's a running gag about Cannes. They've got this thing now where it's like nothing doesn't get a standing ovation, and the bragging rights now is like, well, did you get a 3 minute standing ovation or a 9 minute standing ovation?
Um,
I'm sure Black Mass deserved a 9 minute standing ovation, whether it got one or not.
she sent it to me to watch kindly before
Nice.
she came on the show, and it's very good. I won't tell you what happens in it. It's about a spate of killings that happened in like the 70s.
All right.
But once you get the chance to check it out, it's well worth a watch.
Is it based on real? I
It's
mean,
a
it's
true
not. Is
story,
it
yeah.
is it the Yorkshire Rabbit? What's it about? It's
No,
not
it's
the
based in the
Yorkshire.
States.
Okay, okay.
Uh,
All right,
I won't say anything more because
all right.
it'll wreck it for people. But
Yeah,
they're a
good.
couple free to check out.
All right,
Um,
thank you. Very good.
Viking Wolf though, and was
That's
top
all
drawer.
right. I'll get that one first. I'll watch that one when I'm still awake. Because the problem is, Greg, as you get older, you think you stay up till 2 in the morning and get 3 movies in, and then you fall asleep halfway through the second one.
Oh
So I'll
well,
treat Viking Wolf.
I struggle to get through one at a time now at this stage. Um, but Peter, just before we close out tonight, have you got anything upcoming that you'd like to promote?
Well, I just I had a new collection of short stories. It's not brand new. It came out about 7 months ago, and it's called All
We'll
Our
call it
Heart.
brand new.
We call it brand new, yeah. It's exactly. It's not yet a year old, so that constitutes brand new. So that's my second collection. I've got three novels out and two collections of short stories, and this is called All Our Hearts Are Ghosts. Available on Amazon, my friends, in both ebook and paperback. And I've got a brand new story coming out in a couple of months in an anthology called Darkness Beckons. My story is called He Wasn't There Again Today, and that's edited by Mark Morris, who's another great UK-based horror writer and editor. So, and a whole bunch of good people in that book. Mark Gatiss has got a story in there, Stephen Volk, um, both of whom sort of have movie connections, so you should know they are as well. Um, and yes, and people can find me if I've got other stuff to promote, I'll open my big fat mouth about it all over social media. I'm on Facebook under my own name, and I'm Limey Bastard 55 on Twitter and Instagram. So
And
thanks,
that's where
Greg.
I found you.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad you did. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's been very fun, and as I said, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on.
Oh, no, it's great. Great.
And if you ever want to come back on and just chat horror rather than uh, all
Sure.
being about you, you're more than welcome anytime.
Fantastic. All right, Greg.
Um,
And thanks
but
everybody for listening.
for this is I will end this the way I end every single Friday night. In the words of the great George A. Romero, ladies and gentlemen, stay scared.